Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good evening. Thank you for being here this evening and welcome to our series More Than Just Money, where all your financial curiosity will be answered. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nurul Iman. I'm currently an investor relations and data analyst in Capital Boost, and I am also in the research department of IF at SG covering Shariah and finance. Islamic Finance at Singapore, or IF at SG, is a community of scholars, finance professionals, and students in Islamic finance. What started as a WhatsApp group has now become a society in the making with a long-term goal to serve the Singaporean community through Islamic finance. Tonight, I'm honored to share this platform with an expert in cryptos. Our distinguished guest, Bro Aziz, is currently the Chief Product Officer at Fasset. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, a Dubai-based cryptocurrency exchange platform. Previously, he founded a media platform called Master the Crypto, which focused on simplifying the concept of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology for the masses. While his platform has been established in 2019, he still frequently publishes his articles on eToro. Brother Aziz was featured in the 2019 edition of Islamica 500, a publication which provides biogeographical details of 500 of world's most prominent and influential personalities in the Islamic world and economy. He is also a graduate of International Islamic University of Malaysia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Brother Aziz.
Walaikum salam. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So before we start, I would like to remind our audience, okay, that is tuning with us currently right now, to ask any of your questions related to cryptocurrency on Slither with the hashtag MTJM3. So yes, any question, do drop your questions there. All right, let us start. We do understand, Brother Aziz, that there's a phase of money where we start off with the barter, and then the primitive money, and then the commodity money, and then we have the fiat money. So to make it easy, fiat money is the money that we are currently using, the dollars and the cents, right? So are we going towards cryptocurrency, which is classified as numbers-based money? Or how do we actually define and explain crypto in brief? Is it a tool for investment, or is it another advancement of money, or is it another phase that we're going to create for money?
Thanks, Sister Nurul. I think that's a great question to start off with. So basically, when this whole thing started, right, this whole industry and technology was created, it was predicated on a single, as an asset and technology that comes along with it, which is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin was described as digital cash, as the next evolution of digital cash, which is relative to, for example, the current fiat system, which is centralized. Bitcoin is decentralized, so it's a peer-to-peer network asset, medium of exchange, right? And so where we see this in the past decade, the evolution of this industry, stemming from not only Bitcoin as digital cash, but also its underlying technology, blockchain, which powers basically a lot of use cases that can be disrupted, just with a different set of as in data structure. So from that, we can see that, as in crypto, that's why we must be very clear when we discuss about this, the bifurcation between cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, right? Cryptocurrencies are what you say is the output of the underlying tech, which is blockchain. And the use cases of blockchain surpasses that of money or any other as in use cases that we can see today. Now, just focusing on one vector or one component of this technology, which is the usage of blockchain technology in the context of money, i.e. the most that we are familiar with is Bitcoin. We can see that it's definitely a new system which is distributed, decentralized, which brings along a host of benefits that we can discuss later. But naturally, I see it as the next evolution of money, because at the end of the day, not only when we talk about Bitcoin, you can see the various utilities over and above the current financial system, but we also see the next evolution of money being, for example, central bank digital currencies, which utilizes blockchain. Right. So basically, the easiest way to describe CBDCs is the current existing structure of money that we have, digital money, right, which makes up about 95% of the total money supply. That is on the blockchain. On the back end, that is what it will be, but on the front end, the consumers don't really are exposed to the underlying, back end, as in blockchain tech, when you talk about CBDCs, which a lot of countries and governments are trying to look at right now.
All right. So, Brother Aziz, when you say it's decentralized, right? You mentioned that. So, do you mean it's a legal tender where cryptocurrency is not related to the regulation of a country? Do you mean in that sense?
No, decentralized is a big word, right? We'll talk about legal system, the legal tender later, tangentially, but as in decentralization is basically a data structure, which means, for example, in a traditional system, right, like a data structure where there's a client and there's a servant client relationship. Whenever you try to Google something, you're a client and then you ask for data from a server, which is Google. So that's a traditional data structure. But in a decentralized structure, basically there is no server. Everyone is a server, basically. So that is where one of the tenets of the spirit of decentralization brings about empowerment, because at the end of the day, anyone can participate, anyone can secure the system, anyone can be rewarded within the system, and there is no limitations on who can join. So that level of empowerment where anyone can join a system and participate in the system and not be encumbered by the traditional as in limitations. So that is where we say that is where we talk about decentralization, right? But in the form of legal tender, I think that is a separate issue, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about one of those vectors of discussion for cryptocurrencies or blockchain technologies, where money is a use case, then definitely legal tender is one of those areas that we can discuss on how being it recognized as a legal tender, like in the case of El Salvador recently, or not as in crypto assets not being as legal tender. That is one of those areas of discussion that emanates from, as in that being discussed as a feature or trait of it being a medium of exchange.
All right. So thank you, Brother Aziz. So hence, in a very simplified way of what is actually cryptocurrency, is actually a regulation of money, and also it is also a sense that it has an underlying that is supported by the technology. Correct? To simplify in that way, cryptocurrency?
No, cryptocurrencies are basically assets, as in virtual currencies or virtual assets that are secured through the process of cryptography. And then the structure of this system is decentralized rather than centralized. So that we are talking about a data structure as well as a modus operandi of it being secured by cryptography. An asset secured by cryptography.
So it's a new money way of looking, but it's in form of technology.
Yeah, it is. I won't start the discussion of it being money, but it being as in an asset in which one of the main use cases is money.
Okay, all right. Okay, understood. All right. So hence, if it's an asset that has to actually be supported by technology, right? So we agree that it's something new, right? And it's the process. It is still in the process of growing. Just like the internet, it took 7.5 years to reach 150 million users in 1997. So Bitcoin being said as an asset that is supported by technology, all right? So roughly, if internet right now has more than 100 million user, okay, even projected to reach billions user, that proof it's going to be faster. I mean, currently, Okay, currently the progress of cryptocurrency and specifically Bitcoin has already projected to reach billions users. That proves that it is going to be faster than the internet. So, from your perspective, Brother Aziz, will this be the catalyst for more acceptance of cryptocurrency, where scholars and regulators alike have to revise their stance on cryptos being accepted much more widely?
Yes, definitely. As in, I mean, the exponential rise of adoption and across the globe that we see forces regulators and any other stakeholders, not only Shariah scholars, to be in the loop of how the technology works and how you regulate or create standards within the industry, right? So this is only natural at a for an industry which is fast growing, which was just as in established 10 years ago.
All right. So, hence, there's a statement that says that for countries that suffer from high inflation, like a war-torn countries, cryptocurrency seems to be the best method for them to transact on top of their national currencies. Yet, bigger and developed countries are more worried that retail crypto investors will lose their money. So, should we look at cryptocurrency more of a solution to the world problem instead of an asset we can look to profit from them?
So naturally, I think that's a good juxtaposition, right? Because at the end of the day, from our point of view, a developed country's point of view, right? As in, we don't have to worry about the weaknesses of the fiat system, right? And therefore, we are at a level where, given that we don't have to worry about that, we worry about other fundamental stuff like custom protection, right? Which is a big thing when you talk about regulators, as in efforts in trying to regulate this industry. But when you look at other countries where their fiat system isn't working that much, or you can see obvious red flags or weaknesses, therein lies the one of the promises or one of the hallmarks of why decentralized cryptocurrencies was created in the first place. Exactly because of that. Because at the end of the day, cryptocurrencies is basically a philosophical. There is a philosophical underpinning that says, you know what, the reason why you want to create a decentralized world is because we are going to run away from with circumventing the weaknesses of the traditional fiat system, in which there is clear mismanagement when you look at hyperinflation in some countries like Venezuela, Zimbabwe. So you can see the effects of what's happening there and how Bitcoin, for example, or even Dash is being a much more viable medium of exchange as compared to traditional fiat currencies. So that on a fundamental level is why cryptocurrencies was created in the first place, right? Because you want to create a fair, distributed, and a world where empowerment is sort of the main trait of a fully functioning closed loop system.
All right, Brother Aziz, just out of curiosity, right? So when we are talking about this, if we talk about fiat money, it is symbolized like notes and coins, like I say. How can you describe cryptocurrency? Is there any how?
I get the premise of the question because it's predicated on the fact that cryptocurrencies are not as intangible, and therefore you see that. But we also have to look at the other side of the coin, where we look at traditional fiat economies, where we see that there's a trending, there's a general as in sequence or trend towards, for example, digital as in payments, where you see only 4 to 8% of the global as in money is in physical cash, and the rest is digital, right? So when you look at, you just don't try to look at cryptocurrencies on the back end, this complex blockchain stuff, but as in cryptocurrencies are really given that they are predicated on a new kind of tech, which is digital in nature, and therefore it is not so different on the front end when we talk about digital money like we are used to.
All right. So hence, should we? I mean, like, for instance, like when we talk about the high inflation and etc. of the war-torn countries, like you mentioned just now, right? And if we understand that cryptocurrency, the way we look at it is not as like the money, the coins and etc. that you mentioned, um, about the tangibility and etc. I have just, this is out of curiosity again. how do we understand that the war-torn countries that we say that the statements say cryptocurrency seem to be the best method for them, all right, when actually they have their own socio-economics and economics they are not how should I put it, in a sense that this is digital, this is technology, this is advancement, but how can from this country where the war-torn countries they actually are developing in it.
Got it. Okay, so the context of the question is based on you can see the two polarized system. So two kinds of system within the spectrum where traditional fiat money predicated on the management of the government, right, and etc. As in based on the local economies, you can see that they are failing, and therefore, as in to fill up the vacuum, Bitcoin, for example, right, the most used cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is there to be a viable as a medium of exchange for users because they don't trust the fiat cash that they have in their local economy because it is devaluing, right? Therein lies the one of the weaknesses of what cryptocurrencies try to offer, right, as an alternative to the centralized system, where we say, okay, instead of as in being vulnerable to the weaknesses of centralized managed as in fiat currencies, we
Mhm.
see an alternative where usually, in the case of Bitcoin, you see a fixed supply asset, which is global in nature, which relatively holds its value. I mean, you can see at the start, Bitcoin was cents, right? And now you can see higher 60,000 is now as in 20, 30,000, 30,000 plus. So you can see that on a relative scale, right? You already can see the level of although a bit extreme, you can see how cryptocurrency works in those countries where the fiat system clearly isn't working.
All right, so cryptocurrency is actually an alternative that fixed supply globally, and hence that's the reason why we can see the future of cryptocurrency. And it is to, in a way, we can say that cryptocurrency has the possibility to give the solution to the world problems, right? Hence, the next question we will go, which is also the hot topic every time we talk about cryptocurrency. And to clear this, brother Aziz, when you said Bitcoin, all right, some of our audience might be confused. Is Bitcoin different from cryptocurrency, or Bitcoin is part of cryptocurrency, or how is it? Just to clear that part when you mentioned Bitcoin.
Got it. So technically, Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrencies, and therefore, whenever we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is basically the founding father or the Adam Smith, right, of the cryptocurrency space, and it is always used as a yardstick as the cryptocurrency market. So when we talk about Bitcoin, so it is a cryptocurrency,
Uh-huh.
and by right, as in technically, it is also a digital cash medium of exchange that we all are used to. And just talking about Bitcoin, when we talk about the context, as in is usually within the context of money. Yes.
All right. So, uh, to to summarize, Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency. Hence, we can say that Bitcoin is part of cryptocurrency, and it is called as digital cash. Hence, we will go to the hot topic where is digital cash, is cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, is it halal, is it Shariah compliant? Because we understand that when we talk about money in Islam, there is a few criteria such as permissible in Shariah, can be possessed, have some use and benefits, and acceptance. So can you explain, Brother Aziz, how cryptos fulfill these criteria?
Definitely. But before that, I need to preface it that I'm not a scholar, and therefore I cannot say this scholar's fatwa is something which is wrong, or something which I can counter easily. As with anything, with there is a khilaf. I mean, we respect all scholars, but here would be an objective viewpoint on how we see cryptocurrencies, right? Because obviously it is a very complex thing, and if you look at various, institutions and bodies and scholars that just on both sides, you can see there are merits, but at the end of the day, when you peel them, I mean, on my in just my as in my humble opinion, as in when you I mean, those against cryptocurrencies are usually centered around the fact that cryptocurrencies are volatile, risky, like mice filled with prohibitive elements like mice, and use fraudulent and used by those in the dark world, right? So those are the main all of that is predicated on a large basis, on a large as in viewpoint, customer protection as well, just like regulators are trying to do, right? Maybe as in preserving the maslahah, right, for the economy. But if you just look right from both sides of the crypto mechanics, one is the philosophical underpinning as well as one is the technical implementation, right? Starting with the philosophical underpinning, the reason why cryptocurrency existed was due to the weaknesses in the traditional fiat economies. Right, you can see inflation or hyperinflation, mismanaged economies, which translates into mismanaged fiat currencies. Where there are you can attribute that to a lot of things, right? Inflation, the effects of, for example, the distribution of wealth, stuff like that, right? So just on the first, as in on the first premise of why crypto was created was because the concept of decentralization was empowerment, so that everyday people would have a stake in money, and would have as in could work towards a single global unified currency, right? And second, if you look at the implementation, I will just talk about utilities, right? The utility of cryptocurrency, it's apparent, right? I mean, vis-a-vis the traditional banking system, when you want to send money, there's a lot of intermediaries in between, costs, inefficiencies of time. An international transfer can take 3 to 5 working days, but a Bitcoin transfer can take half an hour. So just based on utility alone, right, and the ideological just based on the utility alone, you can see that there are various use cases of for example, Bitcoin, which far surpasses that of the traditional fiat currency. And if you peel back at all the ideological notions of cryptocurrencies, you can see where it is coming from. I'm just saying that as in it is created because of the weaknesses of the traditional fiat system. And lastly, to sum up, I don't want to talk about this because at the end of the day, all parties can sort of say, okay, the notions brought about on these arguments, on this fatwa, you can counter. And so those for and against, right? But when you look at the common arguments of those of looking at cryptocurrencies as haram, as in it doesn't really, maybe in my humble opinion, it doesn't really speak to the fact that when you talk about volatility, when you talk about risk, when you talk about fraudulent activities, all those doesn't really hold water in terms of the actual, as in technology that underpins that, right? Which is meant to be more efficient, which is meant to be more, which is meant to foster more inclusion and empowerment, right? So we can have a discussion on that on another day, but you usually, as in that's the kind of debate that we would all have in terms of, oh, it's haram because blah blah blah, all the reasons listed above.
So, Brother Aziz, when you talk about the risk, right, and the risk of cryptocurrency is higher, and that's the reason why it becomes dispassionate, and then it leads to, is it gharar, is it maisir, and etc. I believe that our audience, we should be very clear about this concept of the higher the risk, the more the profit, and the lesser or minimal risk, the lesser the profit. This is something that we need to understand. It doesn't always need to. We do not focus just cryptocurrency. It should be known in general. Do you agree that? Just to that.
Yeah, no, as in that is, you talk about store of value or investment asset, right? And then yeah, if you talk about investable asset, then yes, that makes sense. Risk equates to rewards. But when you talk about medium of exchange, no, as in you don't hear of that argument of as in risk, because a medium of exchange should be stable, right? At the end of the day. So I'm going to the other side. Even though I'm a proponent of cryptocurrencies, yeah, the argument of that being risky is a point of contention for those who say that cryptocurrencies haram. So
a cryptocurrency is focused only on medium of exchange, means cryptocurrency has no chance of investing it?
No, as in the thing is, it being as in investable asset or store of value, or or a medium of exchange, that is really up to the society or communities to decide, right? At the end of the day, because what's the most just like when you talk about gold, right? As in us, as in favoring gold-backed system. I mean, gold in essence could be both, right? So at the end of the day, you extrapolate that to Bitcoin, that could also be, as in you have the same arguments there.
All right. So hence, if we, if I understand that we stand with the reason why why cryptocurrency, the philosophical way of thinking when we want to talk about Sharia. I mean, it's why the reason it existed, because it is needed for empowerment, and it's to actually combat the weaknesses of the traditional way, correct? I mean, so if so hence I would like to ask, in form of tangibility from the Sharia perspective. Okay. So the decision as to whether something can be seen as currency, just like what I have questioned you just now about, like, what is a cryptocurrency? Is it like we can see it or we can touch it, etc. So can it be seen as currency? There are already intangible assets such as the copyrights, the goodwills, but these are intangible. So again, how does intangibility affect how Sharia formulates a decision as to whether an item is haram or halal? So maybe just to also explain to the audience, when we talk about intangible asset, it can be as simple as logo, like our McDonald logo, like any company logos. Yeah, so that is considered as intangible assets. Yeah. All right, but Aziz, on the question of the.
Okay, sure. So when you talk about this is also a hot topic, as in since crypto is not tangible, and therefore that is one of those arguments against crypto, right? But when you talk about, as in from a Sharia perspective, I mean all mazhab except, I mean, the classical Hanafi, as in they all recognize as in intellectual property as an asset, the intangibility of intellectual property as an asset. So just based on that alone, I mean, as in we can see that as in intangible assets are deemed as legal property within the eyes of the Sharia, right? Now, when you talk about the technical implementation of this, how does this reflect in the real world, right? So I think it must be fair. It must hold. We must hold ourselves to a standard which is fair across both sides. Because when you talk about intangibility, right? Digital money, which encompasses like over 90% of our digital as in money in our economies, that is also intangible, right? The tangible part, which is the physical cash and coins, makes up a tiny portion relative to digital money. So can we say that, can we extrapolate the argument across digital money as well? Because I can also go to the back to the other side of the crypto space and say, you know what, we can easily manifest that in a physical form where we as in where Bitcoin addresses and private keys, which basically controls your crypto, is manifested in physical papers where you can use that to pay, right? So, and if that works, so can we say that, can we say that since we can manifest it physically and therefore this is absolved? So I think having this discussion would be a very interesting affair when we talk about the real implementation as well as the equivocal as in other assets that exist in a current system.
Right, so that is about the tangibility and the intangibility, all right, from that scope. From the another scope, when we also started talking about the legal tender, which is not regulated, right? So while there are also some discussions, there are debates, there are scholars that have rebuted these claims with their own Sharia justification that seems very convincing. So how do you see this point when we say that, is it about the non-regulated, it's going against the government sides, and I mean not government, country, state, and etc.
Got it. I mean, that is also something which is highly contentious in the sense that legal tender, right? If it's not legal tender, then it is, I mean, legally it's not permissible, I mean, for usage of within the relative
Our neighboring country, Malaysia, is
Sharia.
a legal tender to cryptocurrency, correct?
Yeah, exactly. In some countries like El Salvador, right?
Yeah.
But I think the crux of the issue is basically is just a simple question, right? If it's not legal tender, is it Sharia compliant? Right. So I think that is what we're trying to discuss, and that's where we see, at the end of the day, I mean, but I'm not aware of of it needing to be a legal tender for it to be a Sharia compliant asset, right? So at the end of the day, the various utilities that is the manifest itself as in the form of cryptocurrencies, way and beyond traditional fiat currencies is clear and apparent, right? And if it's not, if it's just a question of it not being a legal tender, then it would be quite a superficial point to paint cryptocurrencies as Sharia non-compliant, just because countries or central, as in a group of people within a country does not give it legal recognition.
Right. So a great view. I mean, a great point about the legal tender. I mean, legal tender shouldn't be the reason when we want to talk about Sharia compliant or not. All right. So with that being said about Sharia compliant, I mean, when in conclusion, we can say that cryptocurrency, when we talk about Sharia compliance or it's not, we need to know the main reason, and then we need to know what are the scope that we are talking about. So for instance, we talk about the tangibility or the intangibility, and we agree that for legal tender, it shouldn't be, it's not shouldn't be, it's not one of the point to make it Sharia or not Sharia. So there's a bigger picture when we talk about cryptocurrency and how we want to screen it, if I can say, screen it, if it's Sharia or it's not Sharia. But as Brother Aziz said, he stand with the reason behind why cryptocurrency exists till today because of the empowerment. Hence, if we would like to um, talk about, for instance, like Web3 is a decentralized version of the internet where power will be not in hand of a big tech companies. How do you think cryptos will affect this movement of Web3?
I mean,
After the Sharia,
Web3.
yeah, Web3.
So just to close off the loop of Sharia, as in, I'm not saying that I disagree with it not being Sharia compliant by some scholars because of the various, valid points, and some, but the thing is, my contention is that we need to look deeper than just looking at all this, I would say, superficial things about, because at the end of tomorrow, a country, Singapore can say Bitcoin is legal tender, right? And then suddenly it becomes Sharia compliant. So the predication of Sharia compliance should not be based on something that superficial. You just need to be based on more, as in, foundational aspects of the technology that is you see very little of at the end of the day, because every contention could be discussed with subject matter experts where you can see a different viewpoint. That's just it, closing the loop. Now, when we talk about Web3, very
Yeah.
interesting that you brought up, because at the end of the day, Web3 is a byproduct, or is a direct product of the evolution of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, right? Because as you say, it's a decentralization, although it went, there's a few decades on decentralization, but the amalgamation of a decentralized system which is self-sufficient and secure via as the creation of cryptocurrency is where we see it's very revolutionary. So yes, cryptocurrencies and blockchain, the advent of cryptocurrencies and blockchain facilitated this evolution towards Web3, where you can see various, for example, as a decentralized ecosystem relative to whatever that we see that we are used to in the centralized world, like like the Googles, the Facebook. We would have a decentralized alternative to all that, purely because of the advent of blockchain technology that we see today.
All right. Just to clarify also, could you explain to us that Web3 for our audience out there, is it a platform or is it like Bitcoin, part of cryptocurrency?
So now that is less about money, but that is more about the data structure of how this new technology, right? Web3 is basically a decentralized version of whatever that we have. For example, a centralized browser, like Google, is centralized, right? A decentralized alternative to it is basically like what Web3. So basically, Web3 is basically like a standard or way of doing things in a decentralized manner. Basically, the governance or basically fostering the ecosystem of a decentralized world where all that you see centralized in the system, right? Be it be browsers, be it be data structures, be it be finance, right? So basically the decentralized version of it.
All right. So next, my question would be, what do you see the future of cryptocurrency in Islamic finance, and how could it be integrated in it? Are we already lagging behind the conventional sector when it comes to integrating Islamic finance with crypto? Because we are still discussing about crypto. Is it halal or is it not? Is it Sharia compliance? And then this discussion goes on. So what's your view, Brother Aziz?
Yeah, that's only natural, and I think, I mean, on one hand, it's good to discuss, but on the other hand, you sort of like limit the innovation and of integration of this new tech. But I strongly, as in since the start, I strongly believe that when the Islamic finance industry utilizes this new technology, and an emphasis being technology, right, blockchain tech, right, leave crypto for a moment, the underlying tech, when you use that in I would say in rather inefficient system like Islamic finance, because let's face it, Islamic finance tries to circumvent, for example, all those which are prohibited by interest, right? But in doing so, you're making, as in the amount of more contracts, more intermediaries, more cost involved makes it less efficient than the conventional counterparts, which is just direct riba, right? So traditionally, as Islamic finance was created on or not on a similar pedestal, because we need to put in more stuff to make it halal, right? So therefore, you can really streamline the inefficiencies and gather value adds across the system and streamline the entire operations by using blockchain technology. And one of those key areas which I think I love to harp on is basically the usage of smart contracts, automated smart contracts that can basically remove all those centralized intermediaries, reduce the cost, and create a more, as in streamlined and efficient system, right? And you can see that in DeFi, decentralized finance, right? Even when you talk about traditional stock market clearing, right? I mean, in the US, in the Singapore, they have already come up with proof of concepts, or even live operational and as in platforms that tries to use blockchain technology to sort of like reduce the inefficiencies of traditional capital markets operations. Like instead of T+3 for settlement, is instantaneous. So Islamic finance must, I would say, in order for us to be at the same pedestal or even the same playing ground, we must look at all these new technologies to really ask ourselves, right? Okay, how can we use this new technology to create value and streamline inefficiencies across this industry?
It's something new for me when Brother Aziz mentioned about smart contract, and the development. I mean, it's a growing that it has. I believe that Islamic finance needs to catch up with it, because I remember when you talk about smart contract, it it reminds me of something to do with robo advisor, where there is already like zero intervention of humans, right? So like you say, the inefficiency of human capitals and etc. So we want to reduce everything. So everything when we talk about everything is going towards advancement. Everything is towards less intervention of humans. So hence Islamic finance need to also cater in that sense to also um, move towards what is the market is. So the market right now is all about digital technology, less human intervention. Hence, there's a lot of things that Islamic finance need to put to in order to be on par, right? Okay, so Brother Aziz, we would like to go to questions that our audience have for you. All right, so most of the questions are okay. Let me see. How? Okay, this is a not okay. All right, this one. If crypto technology is beneficial for all, why is there still a divide between Sharia scholars regarding crypto when we say that even the war-torn countries can benefit from it?
Because the thing is, in my very highly opinionated lens, right, as in understanding this complex technology requires a certain degree of, okay, I'm not saying that scholars don't know what they're talking about. I mean, that is definitely not my intention. But I think it could really benefit in this process of council where subject matter experts are included, where we can look at a holistic approach and also debunk any as in contentions in a very fair way, right? To say, even one point which is always in highly contentious, which is fraudulent, right? Where we talk about, Bitcoin is fraud, is many people have suffered from fraudulence, and many as in bad people are using Bitcoin, right? So all these kind of things are very very superficial, right? Because at the end of the day, the technology itself isn't fraudulent. As in, if people are fraudulent using the technology, then it is not the fault of the technology, and it is not the fact that bad people use something means that asset is not good, right? And conversely, I think that's supposed to theory. But at the end of the day, we have to have a two-way conversation with highly respected scholars and have like a multi-way as in conversation discussion about from an ideological, from a technical, from an operational level, how as in how cryptocurrencies play out, or the effects of cryptocurrencies in the real world, as you can see from other countries in the example that we've brought up.
Right, thank you, Brother Aziz. Another one, what is the panelist opinion of crypto, especially Bitcoin? Because there are a few definitions. Is it currency, asset, commodities, service, or technology?
I mean, I respect it. I respect the question a lot, and it is only natural for us to compartmentalize that within a specific category. But everything that all the category that was mentioned, anyone can justify that it belongs to that category or that category. But just stepping back for a second and say the purpose of Bitcoin and by extension the rest of the cryptocurrency in a limited capacity is that Bitcoin was created as digital cash, as a decentralized way of a decentralized cash, right? And the thing is, it's hard to say it's cash just alone on that category, because at the end of the day, it's not only cash, but it comes along with it a system, an end-to-end system of a distribution system, where there is a decentralized database that records all in a very transparent manner, which is relatively more Shariah compliant than any privately managed, as in fiat, as in currencies, right? So as in I wouldn't if I commit that to that as in being compartmentalized within one category, you're not doing justice to what it actually is, right? Yes, it is cash. Yes, it is a distribution system. Yes, it is a strong store of value, right? So it can, I mean, as in anyone can just fit that, as in anyone can argue to fit a Bitcoin within all the aforementioned categories.
Right. There's a question. In Malaysia, there are already 4 cryptocurrency that is already Sharia compliance. Okay. So hence, what type of Sharia compliance screening do they go through? Is there any even Sharia compliance screening, or is just purely knowledge? And if I could also add to another one, hence, if we want to ask anything about cryptocurrency, do we resort to ustaz or financial advisor or who? So I mean, let's combine these two questions.
Got it. Okay, that's a tough question. Now, just on the first question, as in the premise of it being Sharia compliance is the absence of any prohibitive elements, especially when we talk about as in business, right? As in, so at the end of the day, when we talk about what is the filter that we say that cryptocurrency is halal? So basically, the absence of all. I mean, just like how do you see a stock is Sharia compliant or not? There is a filter, right? There's debt filter that it cannot be in any industry which is non-compliant, which is like pork, as in prohibitive elements, the absence of riba within the mechanics of the system. So all the absence of the prohibition of Islamic finance, riba, maisir, I mean, you can say that a lot of cryptocurrencies not only the default is in Malaysia, but in other countries, that can serve as the methodology. We can just extrapolate the Shariah screening filter from the capital markets, right? Now, when we talk about the second, transiting to the second question, sorry, can you repeat that?
To whom we can resort to? Is it
Okay, yeah,
ustaz
exactly.
or is it yeah?
Yeah, as in, I think it is a very tough question, right? Because it is very polarized. I mean, you can have a lot of viewpoints for and against from Shariah scholars, from subject matter experts, from governments about the different viewpoints of Shariah compliancy. But I would say that I think given the nascency of this industry, as well as the complexity of this technology, I think it's better for for if for example if there is it's much more safer if within your country the fatwa or the religious body has said something, then it's much easier for you to follow. But if you want to have a deeper layer of understanding, then obviously you can do research on your own and mitigate against the risk of not of superficial, just evaluation, right? So you can dig deeper and see the tenets of any arguments to and fro, as in for and against, and also understand the ideological and technical implementation of how the arguments play out.
All right, thank you so much. And one more. Okay, two more. There's actually a lot. There's so much. There's so many. There's so many. This question is really interesting. Is there any chance if crypto could disappear?
That's a very good question, right? It may sound simple, but it's very deep because, and this is the power of decentralized ecosystem, right? Where we say that in a decentralized ecosystem, anyone can participate, anyone can be rewarded, anyone can secure the system, right? So, and for cryptocurrency, for example, for Bitcoin to disappear, all the computers that have bit as in is running Bitcoin's client or basically the open source software must disappear along with it.
It's logic, yeah.
A concerted effort that there is a global blackout, in all countries, and that although possible, but highly unlikely.
Right? I mean, I agree that the life that we are living now is towards progression, towards advancement, towards technology, right? So
yes. And more on the data architecture perspective, right? Imagine, for example, a country's digital monetary system is predicated on a single server, a single database, and if that is attacked, it goes down, boom, right? And then it, as in the single point of attack. But in a decentralized manner, I mean, you need to, as in, have a concerted effort to take down all servers within a decentralized ecosystem, which means that a guy in Bangladesh, a guy in China, a guy in Singapore, you need to sort of like as in simultaneously of their as in computers for the ecosystem to not function. And there you can see that there is no single point of failure in a decentralized system, and therefore it is much more as a decentralized ecosystem is much more secure from a data architecture point of view.
all right. So the another mostly question, if I could collect it, is that for Singaporean, okay, what are the platform for us to invest in cryptos that are Islamic?
Okay.
And I will add one more. And how do we start with cryptocurrency, specifically investing? So it's all in one.
All right. So for those who are still in the fence of Shariah compliant or not, I really recommend you guys to do your own due diligence and just look at all the fatwas for and against to make your own conclusions, right? Because this is a very nascent space and things are on the move. Today a scholar may say no, tomorrow you can say yes. Today a scholar may say yes, tomorrow you can say no, right? So it's constantly moving and there's a lot of evolutions and variations on this, right? But and also from from an investment point of view, yes, I mean it is right now it is seen as an investment, right? So as with all investments, you have to do your own technical evaluations on what makes sense, whether Bitcoin or whatever other coins out there, you have to do your own due diligence on that, right? So if all that is done, right? I mean, investing is not easy, right? You have to understand what you can invest in. If all those is done, how do I start, right?
Yes.
Obviously, if you're convinced both on the Shariah as well as on your technical due diligence angle, then you can go ahead in any of the Singapore exchanges to buy Bitcoin. Right? All you have to do is open up an account in the Singapore crypto exchange, be as in Binance SG, CoinHeco, Liquid, So all these exchanges, all you have to do is just open an account, verify yourself, and you can deposit money, and then you can buy. If you are unsure of what to buy, I would say, so if you're unsure on how to start, but you just want to start, I would say, please take this as a long-term investment, and don't try to as in play with the markets or short, because at the end of the day, it is still, although it's a relatively new technology relative to the traditional counterparts, but it is still a space which is still in transit, is still going through a process of evolution. So I would say that if you do not want to have, to be really, really invested in the market because of time constraints or whatever it is, just hold it for the long term.
All right. The last question is, how do you see Bitcoin in 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think Bitcoin is going to continue to be the face of cryptocurrency, given it's the founding father. And Bitcoin will always be part of the cryptocurrency fabric, because of Bitcoin, you see thousands of coins that you see different variations of the underlying use case of Bitcoin, where it is populated or it is created in other more use cases, which not only can be focused on money, but in other areas of industry or assets as well. So, as in, Bitcoin will continue to be the yardstick to the advancement of this space. But at the same time, we just want to look at it from a lens of investment, right? Which I'm sure many are aware of. Many are following is naturally, given the limited supply of Bitcoin, it's only gonna be 21 million. It's hard coded, right? At the end of the day, obviously when adoption rises, meaning demand will rise. So at the end of the day, you can see a palpable, as in value expansion of Bitcoin going forward in the long term, as you can have seen when it first started until now, right? So that is basically the general premise of my observation.
All right. So just before that, okay, we already understand about the future of Bitcoin as you see it. But there's a question just came in right here, right now. Do you think Gov coins or Gov coins will be more prevalent? Would it be bit cryptocurrency? So yeah.
At the end of the day, as in government coins, or if I were to make the technical term, or there is a central CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, right? It's basically whatever that you have now, just use it as in just create it on blockchain, which is more efficient. All right. So, but that is a different use case, because that is basically just extending the use case of traditional fiat currencies and using blockchain technology. But at the end of the day, it will still, the various foundational limitations still applies, right? When you want to transfer that, for example, SGD to another country that doesn't have the same infrastructure as Singapore, right? So obviously, forex considerations, the limitations still apply. But on the wider topic of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, it will still continue to be a global currency where the use cases, the utilities of it being a much more efficient transfer of value, a much more secure and uncorruptible money, right? So it will still hold a different, as in viewpoint or different use case as compared to CBDCs, which are just an extension of traditional fiat money that within the countries, within our own relative countries.
All right. So that's all from our audience, from the questions. We thank everyone. And indeed, Brother Aziz, we have learned so much. We understand from its Shariah's perspective, and then how the future of Bitcoin, I mean cryptocurrency. Thank you so much. A big thank you to Brother Aziz. I believe there's a lot more that you would like to share with us, but time is not on our side. Hence, do look out on IFSG space for the next episode of More Than Just Money series, where all your questions will be answered. So once again, thank you, Brother Aziz, and thank you to all our audience. See you again. Good night and stay safe. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.